Bonjour, how you doing? Welcome to this Homebrew Wednesday video. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to the Shed of Glee. It's a bit dirty out there, there's going to be some cobwebs because I've not been out there an awful lot. And we're going to see what's out there, what kits we've got out there. There are a couple of kits out there that we need to use up, and there will be some really old Wilko's kits that probably, I don't know, November 2015, something like that, probably about 6 months out of date. Those ones I may end up chucking at some point because I can't see myself ever using them. I think one's a Cerveza, one's a lager, and I've just brought them with me when I've moved. And we'll just say, you know, we'll play it by ear, fellas. I think I've got a Pale Ale out there, a Young's Pale Ale, and I've got a St. Peter's something or other, but I really don't know until we pop down there and we have a little look. So hopefully we'll be able to brew up something today, and it will make this Homebrew Wednesday video something a little bit more interesting than me just banging on. So I'll see you in a bit, and we'll see what we come up with. All right, ta-da. Watcher, how you doing? Now, you remember a couple of weeks ago I said I'd show you around my Shed of Glee. It's very tiny, this shed. As you can see above my head here, it's pretty much the roof. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip the camera around just so you can see what's going on. So here we go then. Look at this, eh? Look at what's going on here, eh? Look, we've got boxes. There's a Wilko Real Ale there. I've yet to get around to drinking that one. I don't know whether it's alright or not, you see. It might be okay, it might not. That might give me the tom tits, because I used the same yeast that I used in some of these other beers that I've got over here. I mean, it's ridiculous. These are all empty boxes, by the way. This is what, you know, these sort of jars are the sort of things that I use to grow yeast up on. And you can never have too much star sand, can you? Gary bought that for me. My mate Gary bought that for me ages ago, and you can see how much I've used of it. I mean, it's ridiculous. Star sand lasts forever. This is a Wilko's Light Golden Lager, but I think the use by date on it, April 2016. That's probably alright still. I reckon we can get away with that. Down here you can see look at this, fellas, this is mad, isn't it? Look, I've got a St. Peter's Ruby Red that is way past its date, I reckon. I need to, oh look, September 20, is that a 6 or a 5? That might be a 6, you know. We might get away with that one, boys and girls. And down here, hey, past all the cobwebs and that, I've got an APA. Best before May 2017. So, what do you reckon? I've got the APA and I've got the St. Peter's Ruby Ale. I'm going to put this one on, I think, and let's give that a go, eh? Yeah. Actually, no, I'll tell you what. Screw it. We're going to leave the APA because that's got a later date. We're going to put the Ruby Red on and see how we get on with that one. Right, so as usual, fellas, we've got our bucket here. I'm going to sanitise this with Milton tablets. I've got some Jervin Ale yeast from Wilko's, and the missus bought me some of this today on her travels. I'm going to use this instead of the yeast that's in the packet. I'm not going to rehydrate it rather. I'm just going to chuck it on the top and see what happens. Or I may completely go against exactly what I've just said and do the complete opposite. Who knows? Stay tuned and find out in this week's Homebrew Wednesday. Right, so that's full of water. I've got some Milton tablets here. You'll need 1 Milton tablet for every gallon of beer that you're going to brew. If you read the Milton tablet container, you may be using liquid. It will say that you don't need to rinse it. However, I rinse because that's the sort of person I am. I want to make sure it's nice and clean. And I want to get rid of that chemical smell and taste. I don't want that in my beer. So I'll just chuck in 5 tablets into there. And over here in the sink, that's hot water. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get the 2 cans of Ruby Red Ale, and I'm going to stick them in there and leave them in there for about 10 minutes. And yeah, we'll go from there. Right, so for those that haven't seen the contents of one of these boxes before, there's a sachet of hop powder. This one is Goldings. Put that to one side, and obviously there's their premium yeast. They call it a premium yeast, whether it is or not, I don't know. We're not going to use that, so we'll chuck that. All these are 2 tin cans, you see, so we'll just chuck them into hot water, take them out of the box, stick them in there. See this box, the Ruby Red Ale, we'll be chucking that away as well. There we go, that's me chucking it away. Oh, and the yeast, ready? Whee! Chuck that away as well. I've put the tablets in here, so that is getting ready to be sanitised, so that will take about 15 minutes to get that ready. And hopefully, as you can see, there's a tin opener in there as well, so I'm just sanitising the tin opener, and then we'll open the tins. We'll get the contents of the tins in here, put some hot water in, and fill it up with cold water, and away we go. Hey, so while we're waiting for a pan of water to boil, obviously we're going to need to soften up the liquid from the tins in the fermenting vessel. So we need to just chuck on some boiling water on the stove. You guys know how to do this sort of stuff by now. All of this by now should be you know, run-of-the-mill stuff really. It's only a kit at the end of the day. So here, from the Shed of Glee, is the Wilko's Real Ale. It's not quite as cold as I would like, and there's a bit of a head on it, as you can see, because it's not really at friggy temperatures. I've only had it in the fridge for roughly an hour or so, and I've not been particularly good on the pour. As you can see, it's fairly clear, you know. It's crystal clear, in fact. And I'm not sure that you can get the Wilko's Real Ale anymore. I think they've actually stopped doing it, folks. So if you've got one of these lying around still, fair play to you. So what does it smell like? Let's do a mini review before we get back to chucking that beer kit on. It smells quite caramelly, quite sweet. Immediately I'm getting the sweetness off of the beer. I suspect it's going to be quite sweet in taste, because usually the smell is the giveaway. Now it may well be for this particular beer, it didn't ferment all of the way through. However, I'm pretty good when I do beers. You know, I've done a lot of beers now, and I sort of know what I'm doing. I've been doing it for a long time, especially the kits and things. You get into a routine, you know. So cheers to you. Let's have a little sip and see how we feel about it. Yeah. It's quite sharp. It's odd really, because it's one of those beers where there's an initial sharpness, and then you get the sweetness, and then you get the bitterness. I'm not getting much maltiness in there. It's an odd beer, I would say. It's an odd beer. I imagine you can't drink too many of them, because as I say, it's a little bit sweet. And maybe I didn't, as I say, I didn't let it ferment out all the way through, but I don't know. You can't drink too many of these, I want to think. I would imagine after you've had one or two, they might get a little bit sickly. However, it's fine, you know. If I had to score it out of 10, I'd probably give it a 6. There's not an awful lot going on, boys and girls. There's not much hoppiness in there. I'm just getting a sweetness. It reminds me very much of Mick Flatbeer sent me a bitter kit quite a long time ago now, probably about 2 years ago, and he sent me that, and I put that on, and it ended up quite sweet, and it reminds me of that. Yeah, initial sweetness and bitterness, and then you're just not left with very much afterwards. Can't really pick out any hoppage at all. Just a sort of caramelly kind of beer. Yeah, it's fine, boys and girls. Anyway, let's get back to the other beer, shall we? Right, so once this is sanitised, you're probably wondering how to get your water out of the bucket. What I tend to do is I've got a big pan down here and I'll just siphon it off that way. Of course you can do it other ways. You can get the water out, chuck it, be a big man, unlike me, grab hold of it and chuck it down the sink. But it's all up to you how you get rid of your sanitised water. Always try and save a little bit as well, because you never know when you might need to use it. There's always going to be something you've forgotten to clean. So as you can see on the stove there, I've got some water boiling. I've also got a kettle full of water over here. There's my Star Sand, it's a bloke called Stan. Star Sand spray. I've sprayed the lid that I didn't put into the bucket earlier, but I did put the contents in. I'm going to be using a blowout tube. You absolutely don't have to use a blowout tube. It's up to you. You can use your normal airlock. It's a choice thing, boys and girls. So I've got the first tin out. All I'm going to do now is open these tins. I'm not going to show it on camera because it's boring, but I'll open these tins and I'll pour it into the bucket. Right, so just to show you, I've got the contents of both cans in here now. What I did was I put a kettle on and I filled up with water, obviously, chucked it into one can, then got the bulk of the stuff out and then put it into the other can, and then I chucked it all in there. And I'll show you what I mean. Here, look, there's the 2 cans, virtually empty. There's a little bit left in there, but nothing to worry about. And we need to obviously give this a massive stir to get the clump off the bottom of the bucket. And to help us do that, I put on, obviously earlier, some hot water there. I'm going to leave that to boil. We'll chuck that in and then we'll fill it up to the top with cold. Now, I don't know if you can see the steam coming off that. This is really, I mean, that water in there is really quite hot. So once I put some cold in there, obviously the temperature of the water is going to come down. But I think I'm going to need to leave it a good few hours before we even think about putting in the hot sachet and the yeast on top of it. I could stick it in my beer fridge and let it cool down in there, but it's full of beer, so I don't want to do that. So we'll just let it cool down naturally. It's not a massive problem, it'll be fine. So I don't know if you can see that. The temperature of the water is about 31, 32 and it's climbing. So obviously it's too hot to put yeast in. So what I'm going to do is put the lid on and come back to it later on. So you join me after the broadcast on a Saturday night. I've given myself enough time now for the beer to cool down, and I've got this sachet of Golding's hop powder. And what I was going to do is chuck that, put in my own hops, but I think I'll just use that anyway. Chuck the yeast on top of it. So all I'm going to do is take the lid off, chuck the Golding's powder on, chuck the yeast in, and we're done. Well, there you go. That's it then. That's it for this week's Homebrew Wednesday video, boys and girls. I know there's not too much going on and it's just your bog standard kit we're throwing together and it's not very exciting, but you know, I thought it was about time we get back to doing some stuff and I wean my way back in slowly and gradually. But you never know, next time around it might be something a little bit more interesting, and yeah, we'll go from there. So I'll see you on the next one. Ta-da!